All right. Um, several years ago, uh, my family made it with traveled to Europe. It was a family occasion, my brother-in-law's wedding. Um, but we considered briefly tacking on kind of a fun trip in addition to the wedding, which the wedding was in the Alps, and the fun trip, had it happened, was going to be down into Italy. Um, And from my days at the birding center, I had contacts as the professional birding tour guide world. And I asked a couple of them who the best information source was, the best resource for information on birding and nature in Italy. And the name came back, Marco Valtriani. Um, and as it happened, we weren't able to make that trip. So I communicated a bit with Marco, but wasn't able to take advantage of the information then. Um, then several years later, I get approached by a person offering to do an online program for our club, and it was the very same Marco Valtriani, um, who is here tonight to tell us about Italy and the birds that are there, some other things that are not birds that are there, and what brings them all together and makes them interesting. So I'll quit babbling now and turn things over. Marco, take it
Hi,
away.
hi, how are you? Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, hi from Tuscany, Italy. Shall I start? Huh?
Yeah, go ahead and link up your program and
Okay. Do
um
you do you see my screen?
I don't yet. I think screen sharing, yeah, screen sharing looks like it's activated.
Uh,
But I'm not seeing yours yet. I'm just seeing the
allora,
audience,
condivido
everybody's
screen. Oh, yeah,
faces.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Allora.
Now it's getting
Do you
okay.
see, do you see
Now
it?
we see your screen.
Do you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So I can start. Allora, thanks. First of all, thanks for the invitation. It's a big pleasure for me. And I apologize in advance for the mistake I will do because my Italian English, as I say, spaghetti English. And so I'm here tonight to tell you something about Italy in terms of birding and birds, and which the opportunity uh, are in Italy about building trips and places, spots where you can go for your own or with a local guide. The question is why building in Italy? I mean, why should you come to Italy and go birding? Italy is famous abroad, all over the world for other issues. Mm. The food, the wine, the culture, history, monuments, the iconic and romantic landscape like this one, but not sure not for the birds and for birding compared to other countries in Europe like Spain, France, and Scandinavia. And unfortunately, this because there are still many bad rumors in the birders community worldwide. According to that, there are no birds in Italy. Mm? And many things that our skies are empty. Nobody fly in Italian sky except for the airplanes. And these rumors came back, emerged, and they still exist, unfortunately, for many reasons. And I will tell you during this presentation uh, which the reasons are. So we have been always watched, considered like criminals, which like to shot, trap, kill the birds in with many systems in many ways. And this was, I have to admit, was true till the beginning of 90s. Italy till the end of the 80s was very wild in terms of conservation and protection of wildlife in general and environment. And then everything changed in the beginning of 90s when we entered in the European Union. So we had to establish a new rule, new regulation dedicated to the protection of nature, and especially the wildlife, birds and other kind of animals. And now, so the situation changed completely, and now we can boast an important number. These are dates which come not they don't come from Marco Valtriani, but they come from the European Union, the European Commission. So they are officially, they are true, and you can see that more than 20% of the land in Italy is protected by different kind of protected area. Okay, can be a national park, a regional park, and natural reserves. And inside the European Union, Italy is the country with the highest level of biodiversity, considering plant, insect, amphibians, whatever. And it's a country extremely rich in terms of biodiversity.
Can we increase the volume a little, please?
Sorry?
Yeah, Marco, a few people in the audience are having trouble hearing you well. So I think their computers may not have the most kind of I guess the loudest speakers. So
my computer.
Well, no, the people at the other end, the people listening to you are the ones who are.
So I have to speak louder.
Yes, that would help. Yes.
Okay.
By the way, anyone in the audience who isn't aware of that Zoom has captioning, that's another. The captions also can help if you're having trouble hearing loud enough. So that's another option. Okay, sorry for the interruption, Marco. Go on ahead.
Sorry, I was speaking soft because it's 1:30 a.m. Yeah, I don't want to wake up all the building where all the family which share the building with me. Anyway, I was saying that Italy is very rich in biodiversity for many reasons. For the protection guaranteed by laws and natural park and natural reserves, and also because the position of Italy in Europe. Italy is an narrow stripe between Europe and Africa. So they are going from north to south. The climatic and geological condition situation change dramatically. So the range of landscape, habitats, and climate and geomorphology can vary.
Marco,
See.
question. We the slide that's showing for us is still your original cover, the birding in Italy with the pictures of food and architecture around the edges. Are you
don't see the following one?
Yeah, or at least I think we're seeing the PowerPoint, like the whole PowerPoint window, but not the specific slide, like the one slide at a time show.
You see this?
Yeah, now
Ah,
now I see the one
because
about not a safe place for the birds.
I opened the presentation, so you don't see it. Okay, so I have to do this. Now you can see.
Yep. Okay.
Okay,
That's
okay. I
working.
use the, see, I changed the system. Okay. So you can see that I was saying these are the datas, you know, the numbers from the European Commission, and I was saying that Italy is extremely rich in biodiversity. So you know, going from the 80s to the 90s, you see this picture, we did a big jump in terms of conservation and protection. And in Italy now, about 58 species of animals have been counted, but the number will increase shortly because, you know, the DNA analysis and other kind of researches. And even the Italian flora is very rich. So we can boast more than almost 7,000 species with a lot of endemism, very local species. And I was saying before that this rich biodiversity, the reason of this extreme biodiversity in Italy, because we have a different region. We go from the Alpine to the Mediterranean region, and we have also different big ecological system from the mountains, so the Alps, the Apennine, the big islands, and then the big plains of northern Italy and the coastline. So considering that Italy is a relatively small country compared to, you know, US, but despite the small dimension, the variety of environments and habitats is extremely huge. You can pass from one valley to the other. So you drive 40 minutes from one area to another, and the landscape and the habitat can change dramatically. And one of the most important factors which sustain this high biodiversity is the agriculture. Fortunately, in many parts of Italy, especially where I live in the central Italy, we still maintain the traditional rural ecosystem. So we don't practice the intensive agriculture. And the rural landscape here is more or less the same compared to the one you could see in the 1300 or the 1400. And so we still have a very, very detailed mosaic composed by very small fields, vineyards and olive grove. So imagine a puzzle with with thousands and thousands of small pieces. And this, the agro ecosystem here is maintains and preserve almost 30% of the protected area. I mean, different from what happened maybe in America. In our national park, regional park, a big portion of the land is dedicated to the agriculture. People still work in our land. They still produce the grain or grapes, olives, or other local product or local things, and so the humankind and the work of human is one of the engine, one of the booster which still maintain the biodiversity. Here you can see a picture of everything. This is just a small selection of living beings we have in Italy, considering flower, mushroom, butterfly, snakes, and amphibians, etc. Okay, talking about birds. According to the last official publication from one of the most important ornithological institute association, CISO, this is the acronym of Italian Society, Ornithological Society. We have about more than 550 bird species recorded in Italy since the 1800s, and almost 300 species regularly breed in Italy during between April and July. So a quite big number, consider the repeated dimension of our country. Here you can, I focused some of the most productive, important spots in Italy where you can go birding. All the country can be very good depending on the season. I repeat, depending on the season. This is a very important aspect which can define how a specific region area can be good or not. And where the red spots are, you can have a very satisfying, very productive experience in terms of birding, especially during the breeding season. So I mean the Alps and the Dolomites. Then we have all the coastal wetlands on the northeast from Venice till the border with Slovenia. Then the central Italy, especially Tuscany, where I live. And then we have the Apennine, which is the spine of Italy, the long mountain chain which divide Italy into two sides, the Adriatic side and the Mediterranean side. And then we have Apulia and the Till of Italy. And then the two big islands, Sardinia and Sardinia and Sicily. And then I have put a dot here, a spot here. This is the Sicily Strait. It's important to talk about this point for tourism. One, because it's one of the most important bottlenecks for the migration of raptors and storks and cranes, big birds. On the route between Africa and Europe. So the birds now, starting from February, they leave Africa and they come to Europe, passing through this narrow bridge, which is Italy, and they pass through the Sicily Strait. And in autumn, they come back, they go south, and they pass again through the Sicily Strait. And the other important things about this point is the fight, the struggle, the war we had in the late 80s and the beginning of 90s against the poacher. I mean the bad guys who used to kill as much bird was possible during the migration through the Sicily Strait. I said Italy in the past was a mess, was far west, let me say. And And in that area, there was a very stupid tradition, according to what you had to kill one honey buzzard at least to avoid relation of your wives with somebody else. So in order not to be betrayed by your wife, you have to kill one of these birds. Of course, that was an excuse. And but people still believed in that. This created a big scandal in Europe, and most important environmental organization and organized camps there to stop this habit, this action, and then even the government sent the army there to erase this problem. So it's for the history of conservation of nature and birds in Italy, Europe. This is a hotspot, a very important point. Where you can go in birding in Italy? Everywhere, as I said, you according to the season, and every kind of landscape. You can go in the typical rolling hills landscape in Tuscany, in the Dolomites, in the Mediterranean forest, and even in the towns and villages, especially the old one, the ancient one, the towns and villages which are very appreciated by tourism, because they are original, they are middle age, they are ancient, and with ancient building. That kind of habitat is very appealing and attracting for many species of birds. The problem is foreigners and birders usually go there in September, October, when there are very few birds there in the town, not only in the town, but especially in the town. So this is because many people think that there are not birds in Italy. Then you can go in the ruins, in the archaeological sites, like the Valley of Temple in Sicily, in the forest, in the lagoons. So the range of, as I told you before, the range of habitat ecosystem is very, very big in Italy. And in many natural reserves, especially the one which protect wetlands, lagoons, lakes, there are very important, useful structure which helps the birders and the natural photographer. So we have many blinds where you can take a look of the water and watch the birds, and even towers. So many of our natural reserves are very equipped with these things. You can see other example of blinds, and also a path which allow you to literally walk over the water. Nothing related to the Bible or the Gospel, but just to say that in many places you can even walk to the reed and reach the blinds, and even also you can watch around. Look for the birds which nest all winter in the reed. Okay, now, okay. So what we can see in terms of species in Italy, and so now I will show you just a short selection of species. And you can see the Italian name on the top and then the English name below. And you can see all kind of family, talking about taxonomy, from songbirds and heron and ducks and shorebirds, raptors, whatever. common birds, but even relatively scarce or rare species. For example, this one, the Kentish plover, which is called fratino, means the little Freya, because the brown hood he has, which reminds us a monk, Franciscan Freya. This species is not a good shape in Europe. In northern Europe, is mostly extinguished, but along our coast, in coastal lagoons and marshes, you can still see it in many places. And it nests in the beaches, and we have still a very strictly protected area where they can still nest. Then we have even very colored birds like the green woodpecker, this one. And different from Northern Europe, where the shrikes almost quite disappeared because the different kind of managing of the agricultural habitats, the rural landscape. I repeat, because we still have a very natural rural habitat. I told you about the mosaic, and which is house of different species of shrike. And in Tuscany, in the south, you can still see this one, the lesser gray shrike, which is extremely rare in Europe. It's considered one of the most rare, one of the rarest species in Europe. Then we have iconic bird like the hoopoe, and even big raptors like the short-toed eagle, with this particular habit and diet. This, for example, this raptor, despite his size, like to hunt especially snake. So no rabbit or small mammals, but snakes. In fact, it's also called snake eagle. And frequently you see them taking the snake to the chicks, to the nest, swallowing part of the snake from the head, and leaving the tail of the snake landing from the mouth. So you can see in the sky this big bird, this big raptor with a long tongue. It's a very particular behavior. Then other iconic birds like the cuckoo and the European bee-eater. This species is very common in Italy, and in nest wherever they can find cliffs, sandy cliffs or clay cliff, because they dig a sort of burrow underground nest, and with a tunnel and a room at the end. So in between May and September, they are very common. Ecco, this is the honey badger, falco pecchiaiolo, the bird I told you before, related to the history of Sicily Strait. And these sides like common buzzard, but this bird, like the other one, has a particular diet because it eats just nests and larvae of bees, hornets, and wasps. So they soaring, they look for the nest of these insects, and when they found one nest on the ground, they can dig with the feet and extract the nest. And of course, they like a lot of honey they can find in the bee nest. Then the water rail is another very interesting species. And another very colored bird is the European roller. Till 10 years ago, he was confined, concentrated just only along the coast. Then we don't know, probably the climate, because the climate change, this bird enlarged his home range. So now during the breeding season, you can see it, the roller, even in the inland of Italy, the inland of Tuscany, quite close to the Apennines. This is was considered something which was considered unbelievable 15 years ago. Then we have the woodpecker and the very big guys like the vulture, the griffon vulture. And this big scavenger lives in many spots, has many colonies, stable colonies in the Dolomites and the Apennines, and especially in Sardinia. Sardinia Islands is very famous for the birds. The islands contains both the most important colonies of griffon vulture. Then we have owl, and then we have birds related to the mountain pasture, like the blue rock thrush, and the mountain pasture, especially where the cows are, and rocks. So again, our birds, the Italian Mediterranean avifauna is extremely linked to the ancient traditional activities which the humankind has been practiced from the ancient time, from the Bronze Age. And so where the cattle, so the horses, or the sheep, the goats, still graze, still eat, the grass in the mountains, and maintain these huge open spaces. So the mountain pasture, you can find these birds. One of the problems about the conservation, the protection of birds in the Mediterranean in Italy is not related mostly to pollution or hunting. Is the fact that many of these habitats in the mountains are disappearing because people left the mountains, because being a shepherd is too tough. Living and working in the mountains is very tough. So people starting from the 60s left the mountains, and these open habitats disappeared because the forest occupied the spaces. Then another very colorful bird is the kingfisher, the golden oriole, and robin. The golden oriole with the roller and the beaters are tropical birds. Actually, they are tropical birds which we don't know why decided to migrate in spring to Northern Europe, but they are related to other tropical birds in Africa. So these are some small birds, songbirds, passerines, you can see in Italy. Then we have many population of flamingos along the coast. In many cases, you can count thousands of them. And the most important historical colonies, groups of clouds of flamingos are in Sardinia, and they have a specific term, name in their dialect, in their language, which means translated in Italian, the people of the Lagoon. So from the Bronze Age, flamingos have always been related to the Sardinian culture history, and they are considered almost humans for the people of Sardinia. Then we have shorebirds, some pipers, and then I put even the picture of the Dannock, which is a typical winter bird, to say that we have birds even in winter, especially in winter, not in the mountains, of course, but in the plains, in the hills. If you come in Italy between November and December, January, you can have fun. You can see a lot of species. Then the tulaul. This is a very particular bird because it's one of the few owl species in Europe which can be seen even during the daylights. And walking or driving through the countryside, frequently you can see this bird perched at the top of the roof of the country houses roof or bell towers or chimney. And sometimes in the south you can even see vagrant and rare birds like this one, the big black-eared wheater. Okay, the next part of the presentation is dedicated to what we really do in Italy to protect the habitat and the birds. So this is just a short selection of projects carried by many institutions, especially in national park or regional park, using money found from the European Union. You can see this logo, LIFE, is the official symbol of the European Union project related to the conservation of habitat and species. And I will show you some example. This was carried on right in the mountains, 30 minutes from where I live, in a mountain chain called Prato Magno. And the goal of the project was to preserve the typical habitat composed by this bush, Erica scoparia, which was used in the past to produce this broom. The conservation of this kind of bush was related to the conservation of these birds, which are ecologically talking extremely linked to that habitat composed by that broom, that bush. You can see here the landscape of the mountain chain, and the project carried on here, happened here, right in the center of Italy, and all these species are related to this habitat because for them to nest, and many of these species nest right in the middle of the bush or over the bushes, like the Montagus art, which is another important species in Europe in terms of conservation. Another project was dedicated to the lanner. This falcon is not in good shape in Europe, unfortunately, for many reasons. Persecution, impact with electricity line collision, especially because poaching. You know that in the Middle East, there is still this ancient tradition of hunting with falcon. Falconry is still a very important tradition, and the lanner is one of the preferred species to do that, to practice this kind of hunting. And so what they did in the past, and they are trying to do even now in Italy, is to steal the chicks in the nest just before they're ready to leave the nest to fly, and take the chicks to the rich guys in the Middle East. But fortunately, thanks to specific action of conservation carried on by the Ornithological Association, even our ranger, we have a branch of our police corps which works on the conservation of nature and wildlife. All thanks to all these action, this activity decreased a lot. And few years ago, we decided to start a project to improve the population of lanner falcon in Italy. Consider that in 2022, there were just 45 pairs, and most of them are in Sicily, and we have some of them even in Tuscany. Yeah, and the project happened here, and is still in progress. The work is still in progress. So in the northern Lazio, so Rome is about here, and what they did, what they have been doing is to release young lanner from couple kept in captivity, which are not able anymore to hunt for themselves, and but they still breed, so they give us chicks, babies, which can be grown up and released in nature, and they put when they release, the ornithologists put a GPS tracking on the board to tracking the movement through Italy. And also, other than checking the nest, they try to increase the number of potential nesting sites, protecting a good habitat, and created even the good condition in cliffs, for example, or another kind of habitat where this bird can nest and hunt and eat and prey. This is another important project which was realized in the Toscan archipelago. In front of the Toscan coast and the Tyrrhenian coast, there are many islands which compose the so-called Toscan archipelago, Toscan archipelago, and some islands are quite famous. So, like for example, Elba, where Napoleon was imprisoned, and Monte Cristo is the island where described in the Dumas novel, the Dumas book, the Count of Monte Cristo. And there was a big problem, many problems in this island before the institution of the national park, and the main issue was the big population of rats, and the rats didn't allow many seabird to nest because they can eat the eggs and the chicks in the nest. And and these are the list of the bird species involved in this project. So the project focused mostly to protection of these species, the colonies, the nesting colonies of these species in these islands. And this is the area of Italy where the project happened. Here you see, and so between Tuscany and Corsica Island. And they removed the rats with the bites, special bites, poisoned bites, and traps, and also they monitored and control the places in the cliffs, in the steep cliffs where these birds nest. And they even put cameras inside many nests. And so, the project worked for about 10 years. So the ornithologist collected a lot of data, a lot of information, and saved the nesting colonies of the seabirds in the Toscan archipelago. So now, whenever you take a ferry from the coast to the islands, in spring and summer, you can see seabirds everywhere around it. Another important project was this, dedicated to the bald ibis. This officially is a species extinguished in Europe. But a collaboration between the Austrian and Italian ornithologists used the pair in captivity in Austrian zoos, and they used kicks from this couple to recreate a independent groups population of this bird. And it was extinguished the species was extinguished in 1700, in the 17th century in Europe, and the species used to migrate from Germany, Switzerland, and Austria to Italy and in southern Europe. And what they did to save these species? They teach the young the migration route from Austria to the area of Tuscany called Maremma along the coast, using the paragliding with an engine. So the young birds, recognize this guy as a parent, and they instinct say them to follow the parent during migration. So they follow these flying ornithologists, and this guy started to lead a small group of wild ibis from Austria to Tuscany and back. And the goal of the project was to create a population of birds which were knowledge in terms of the migration route, independent. And the goal was reached because during the year, so the project has been working for more than 10 years. The population of this bird increased a lot, and now we can count more than 200 northern wild ibises. So considering that was 10 years ago was a Spanish extinguished species, this can be considered a big goal. And we think that by 2028, the population will be self-sustaining without the help of humankind. And this is the place where this bird tend to winter. And from this place, they spread out to every part of Italy. So now you can meet them even in the north, in the south. Okay, the last part is dedicated to where and when you should go in Italy. You should go birding in Italy, because I said the stereotypes about there are not birds in Italy depends on the fact that the birders go in the wrong place and in the wrong habitat, in the wrong season. So if you go in the typical Toscan countryside, for example, the best moment are spring, winter, and early summer. If you go here from August to November, you don't find anything. Very few species, just a few resident species. This because the species which breed here in big number in spring, in early summer, are gone in September, October. If you come back, and then of course, if you come here in winter, you can see a lot of wintering species which comes from the Northern Europe. Then the city and the ancient villages. Again, you should visit them in spring and winter and early summer, not in autumn, in September, October, because there are very few birds in this habitat. Instead, the wetlands, lagoons, marshes are good in every season. Whenever you go there, it can be May, January, September, or August, you see species here. And the coastline, very good again in spring, winter, and early summer. And winter because sometimes, like last year, it can happen that some northern species decide to move. They don't make a migration. It's just a movement of birds, because in the big lakes of Germany, and Austria, and Europe, it's too cold. So they decide to come in the Mediterranean because it's warmer. Then again, in the mountain, doesn't make sense to go there in winter, because it can still snow in the Alps and Dolomites and the Apennines. Not as it happened years ago, because for the global warming, we don't have so much snow as we had in the past. But it can snow a lot, so in winter you don't see so much. But in spring and summer, early summer, and in fall, especially in the fall, you can see a lot of species. If you go there in October, and especially between the end of September and the end of October, and if you go in the mountain pass, which are reachable by car, during the day you can see big flocks of birds, especially songbirds, small birds, passing through the lower mountain path. And so because the mountain passes are sort of bottleneck where these species concentrate. The Alps and Dolomites are a sort of wall from which divide the Northern Europe and the Mediterranean, so they have to pass this wall, and they use the gaps, the lower pass where lower altitudes. Okay, this is the team of boarding in Italy. I am the oldest one, and we lead the tours everywhere in Italy. So the presentation would be finished. If I have also some picture of environments and landscape to show you, tell me if there is still time or not.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. Excellent presentation. Let's see. Now is the time. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask Marco, you can go ahead and either post them in the chat for me to read, or you can unmute yourself and ask it directly. And I'll start off with a question or two of my own. Actually, I was very struck, Marco, with the description of the honey buzzard using its feet to dig down into the insect's nest, and it seems very different than I've heard from any other raptor. Have you ever seen that? Have you ever had a good look at honey buzzard feet, and do they look different than the feet of other raptors that don't use them for digging?
What do you mean? The behavior of digging? I don't understand.
No, just the size and shape of the feet. That it seems like if they're specialized for digging, that's not something other raptors would have.
I honestly, I have not focused accurately the shape of the nail, or the finger, but of course they are specialized. Yes, the evolution gave them a special fit. Now, talking about the shape and the size and the color of that bird, is important to say. It's important to say that it looks very similar to the common buzzard, extremely similar.
Really?
Yeah.
Badger feet.
Yeah, but in flight you can recognize it because they keep the wings flat, and also they have a longer neck and a smaller head. So if you look them closely, they look like more like a pigeon than raptor. They are very particular falcon.
Interesting. I have to hope I can get out there and see one of those someday. That sounds fascinating.
Come in Italy, you will see.
Sometime that trip that we had to cancel, hopefully that'll actually happen someday. Let's see. So if a birder was only able to visit one place in Italy, say they had a limited amount of money to spend on their trip and not able to roam around a lot, what place and what time in Italy would they see the most total birds, and also what place and time would they see things that are the most special to Italy, that are easier to see in Italy than anywhere else?
Allora, I think the best season is spring, between May and June and early July, and you can go. Usually people combine the tourist activities, the tourist experience with birding. So they go mostly around Florence or Rome. Not far from Florence or Rome, you can find all kinds of habitats. Countryside, marshes, lagoons, and mountains, where you can see all different kind of species. from water birds, then songbirds, then raptors, hoopoe, roller. So I suggest the central Italy, so the area between Rome and Florence.
Okay, and what about, I mean, so for instance, you mentioned the Lanner falcon that had Italy had had the vast majority of the world's population of them.
Europe population.
European population. And are there particular places in Italy that have, most of the falcons, or are they spread sort of pretty widely all across the country?
No, now they are mostly concentrated in Sicily and along the southern Apennines. So from Umbria to Calabria. And they are not so easy to find, because they tend to nest in very hidden sensitive spots, and so it's very, and also because they are very protective. If you know where the nests are, you shouldn't tell others.
Understood.
You
Yeah.
have to keep the secret about the place.
Yes, we had some situations like that around here with birds, that if you let the word out that the birds are in town, all of a sudden there's hundreds of people with cameras surrounding them. And the neighbors get very upset. So let's see. I guess I could throw in one more. I was wondering, I know in the USA and North America, there's various people who go looking for places that they perceive as wilderness, which have the least human presence, where you don't see or hear other people as much as possible. Is there anywhere that's easier here, where it's a much younger country and hasn't been around as long, and Italy has so much longer a history of with humanity? Is there anywhere in Italy that you would go if you were trying to not see fellow humans around you?
It's not so easy, not only in Italy, but everywhere in Europe, especially in the southern country, in the southern European countries, because you can find as you said, the tracks of human activities from the 2000 years ago everywhere. So you can recognize the effect of the human activities from the beaches to the top of the Alps and Dolomites. And so we have a different concept of wilderness in Italy and Europe. Different concept. In fact, as I said, in our national parks, regional parks, and natural reserve in general, protects, in many cases, habitat and environments created by the human activities. And many species, very rare species, are ecologically linked to this habitat. Okay, so wherever you go, even in the highest trails of Alps and Apennines, you can find people, and of course hikers, not motorbikers or people or hunters, and but you find people, and but anyway you can have the feeling of wilderness even in Italy.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, I see another question out there. Wiljo, go ahead.
Yes. Hello, Marco.
Hello.
Thank you very much for your talk. I really enjoyed it. I am from Holland myself, even though I live in America, and I have been several times to Italy, but that was before I was interested in birds. But anyway, I would be interested whether you yourself have favorite locations to go birding for yourself.
My favorite location. Actually, I don't have a favorite location. I mean, because it depends on what you want to see, and I repeat, and which season you want to go, birding. Okay, so for example, talking about wetlands, I have always amazed by the Venice Lagoon, Po Delta, so the wetlands which are in the northeast, the area between Venice and Slovenia. Those are very beautiful and amazing wetlands, lagoons, and talking about mountain birds. I think you should go in the central Apennine, in the area called Abruzzo.
Yes.
Abruzzo, which is just 2 hours by car from Rome. Okay, you can take the highway, and in 2 hours you are in this very wild area, one of the wildest areas in Europe. And then the Dolomites. The Dolomites
Oh, great.
are
Yes.
fantastic. Yes,
Thanks.
you're welcome.
All right. Well, unless there are any other questions out there, I think, and Marco, this is the point. If this were an in-person program rather than Zoom, we would all stand up and give you a round of applause for your program. But you'll have to imagine that part through the computer. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the program. It was very,
Okay.
very interesting.
I will come back in the US next fall.
Oh,
So last November I came I was in the US for the first time in my life. I really got impressed by what I saw in terms of birds and places and spots. And so I will probably come back next fall and we'll meet you again in person. Okay.
Excellent.
If you want.
Okay.
that's great.
In your honor, I replaced the image behind me with a different species, one that I did from my one and only trip to Europe.
Okay.
A European bird species behind me now.
Black kite. What is that?
Yep. I think it was red. Is it red or black?
Red. Oh no, you are right. Yeah, red. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
A kite.
Well, thanks again, Marco. I'll be in touch by
Okay.
email, but it was a pleasure.
Okay. Bye. Ciao.
All right.
Ciao,
Good night,
ciao.
everybody. Thank you
Ciao.
for coming.
Ciao.